Back again, my friends. It's just me and you and the droning sound of my dishwasher. Screwing this up and making me sound like a goddamn amateur. It's Neoncast, episode 25, the last for this year of 2019. A year where this whole thing kind of started to get going again. You know, both the podcasts and more so even the streams on Twitch. .tv/Neontaster. I do my plugs at the end, but who sticks around that long, right? And hopefully in this coming year of 2020, there's going to be lots more of this and that and the other thing. Yeah. You know, it's getting cold outside. The snow is starting to fall. You hear those jingling bells and see everyone in their holiday cheer, which could only mean one thing. We're about to get very disappointed in a Star Wars movie. And we were, or are, or I don't know. We're going to talk about it at length, I think. Because I saw Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. The culmination to however many years it's been. I should have checked this before I did this. 32? 42? I'm pretending to calculate this in my head and I'm just being quiet. You say it. I'm going to count to 3, and you listening right now say how many years it's been since Star Wars came out. And then imagine that I said it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Many years since, yes. Anyway, it's the culmination of this entire saga, 9 films, blah, blah, blah. How many times have we spoken about this? And endlessly debated both the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and then both movies in this iteration, including the Solo movie and the Rogue One and all of that stuff. And here we are at the end of that whole mess. Decades of nerd rage have brought us to this. Was it worth it? Was it worth all of this time and money? I don't know. I don't know how or where to start with episode 9, and therefore I decided that I'm not gonna. Instead, I'm gonna talk about the Mandalorian first. Because, you know, let's discuss something simple first. Let's discuss something easy. Because The Mandalorian is a very easy thing to talk about. Why? Because it's good. It's just good in a very simple, straightforward way. It's fun. It's charming. There's good action. It's conceptually good, and it is also well executed. And that's that. I mean, again, I can get into more minute detail about this, but the proof is in the pudding. It is highly discussed. It is highly memed. The vast majority of people enjoy it and are acting as Disney marketing conduits for their newest toy craze, merch craze, Avatar Baby Yoda. It'll be funny if eventually he has a name and it is something totally not marketable, like shit face, but it's like spelled with like apostrophes, like it's some kind of weird Star Warsy word, but it like, and someone with like zero marketing acumen did it, and now they got to deal with the fact that his actual name is like shitface, SH'IT FAS or something like that. Somebody photoshopped that. But yeah, as I was talking about on Twitter, the Mandalorian is a thing of beauty in its simplicity. Ironically, it's heavily inspired by Westerns, but also like, you know, samurai or whatever. And there is something very zen and simplistic about it, minimalist even, because they did not try to do too much. They were just like, okay, let's do a story about a bounty hunter and just make it a Western. Just borrow a bunch of different kinds of Western tropes, and just make them Star Wars-y. And that's a really simple idea. And, if you're looking for like really subtle, cinematic echoes and stuff like that, you're in the wrong place. You're going to get very simple here. You're going to get this episode is very Seven Samurai, and that episode is very Magnificent Seven. I don't know. I mean, same thing, right? But it is full of very, like I said, straightforward references to Western content, Westerns. And that's really fun. And because it's a simple idea, it's a good well of stuff to mine from. And it's also like kind of easy to do it well. I mean, easy, I'm not downplaying the creativity of the people involved. By easy, I mean like you don't have like too many like balls in the air. You're not juggling 16 things, which we're going to talk about a little later in the Rise of Skywalker. You're doing something very, like I said, very straightforward, which allows you to do it well. A lot of like small indie sci-fi movies, for instance, manage to do well because of their restrictions. It's a restriction there. It's not a creative choice. But, if you got a film and you only have one room you can film in, sometimes working around that problem leads to creative results. Here it was, they have infinite money and infinite possibilities. They chose to do a simple concept because, I don't know, maybe that was just their creative idea. But in the end, it turns out to be something that is sort of works well and cohesively, and none of it is like jarring. It all just works really well together. And I was saying that another example of a show that did essentially exactly this is Firefly. And it's almost like Joss Whedon in one of his like design, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, pre-production, or when he was conceiving it, just setting it in a world where you is going to be a Western type world gives you the ability to draw from different elements of Westerns in order to superimpose them onto your scenario. So like if you say, okay, I'm going to set my show in space and it's going to be a Western. All right. So like, what is the police force going to be like? Well, I don't know. Let's just take, the way sheriffs and stuff worked in Westerns and like superimpose that over our space thing, and what would the post office or something like that. Just go step by step like that. And the original trilogy certainly had some of that. The whole Star Wars cantina thing was a very like a very Western style saloon kind of atmosphere. Anyway, my point was that the Mandalorian just ran with this concept and ran with it well. Running with it well, I mean the finale episode hasn't aired yet. And contrary to what some other people have been saying, I actually enjoyed that a big chunk of the middle of the season was like episodic and not serialized. I think it gave room to build the character, Mando's character, and his relationship with the kid, especially since we know there's going to be another season. So it's not like, oh, we only had 8 episodes and only 5 of them were devoted to the actual plot of the show. It, and also the penultimate and possibly also the last episode are incorporating things from that, detour into episodic territory. But I do think that it's actually good to not be tied down like that by the dichotomy between something that is serialized and something that is episodic, in the same way that it is a sort of a dramatic type show that isn't confined to the 42 to 45 minute runtime like TV shows are, and is actually kind of fast and loose with how long the episodes are. Like, who decided? That's like an interesting thing worth thinking about. Like, who decided that episodes of shows all have to be the same length? And I'm not talking about like, oh, make one 2 hours and make one 15 minutes. I'm saying like, you know, you got a little bit of play, especially if you're on a streaming service, but not even. I mean, Game of Thrones towards the end had like episodes of like weird lengths, and it was fine. It was like, oh, this week we're going to have an hour and 10-minute episode. It was like, oh, cool. I guess you have more story to tell. They didn't. But, you know, maybe somebody else will do that better. But, thus far, the episodes have felt like they were the length that they needed to be. They didn't feel padded out in order to all be 42 minutes, which they could have been. They could have just drawn out every scene of them traveling the places. They could have had, establishing montages and all kinds of crap like that to pad the runtime to whatever 42 minutes, which again is an arbitrary length for like hour-long dramas that's based on how many commercials you can shove in an hour, 18 minutes apparently, or thereabouts. Because there's also like a promos for the channel itself that run during commercial breaks. So I don't know how that breaks down, but I like that it is a freer form like that in both that sense, in the construction of the episodes, and also in how it chose to tell its story. It's funny because I complain when like anime shows that are 13 episodes do that, but I only do that because they then rush the ending. If the ending doesn't feel rushed, then yeah, sure, go detour, do 3-4 episodes of some other crap. But don't then shove 5 episodes worth of plot into the last 2 episodes. That's not how you do that. This seems very simple. Again, simplicity. Take something simple, do it well. And actually, similarly to the Rise of Skywalker, I got to actually I got to jot this down. Because I don't want to spoil something about the Rise of Skywalker that I'm going to compare this to. It's always been the same exact thing, right? These former Imperials, they want this kid. He's going to run away with the kid. The end. I mean, he comes back now. Now it comes back around to the bad guys trying to take the kid again. It was him running away, and now he's coming back to like face it once and for all, but it is all one small, simple story. And therefore, the things that are introduced in the second to last episode, even though they're only introduced there, don't feel like they came out of nowhere. It feels like they were always like kind of in the background there and not just an ass pull. Anyway, The Mandalorian, it's great. The last episode is going to be next week, and then after that, who knows how long we're going to have to wait for another season. Hopefully not long. It is, like I said, extremely popular, judging by chatter and like pop culture and whatever, despite being on Disney Plus, which is something that not everybody has and is a brand new service, in fact. Quite successful, which is good. Which again, I'm going to talk about because I'm getting now to Rise of Skywalker, and there's necessarily going to have to be some talk about Star Wars in general and Lucasfilm and Disney and what's going to be happening in the future. So, the Rise of Skywalker. I'm not going to spoil. I'm going to do a little bit, and then I'm going to just go spoil because, like, I don't know. I feel like if you're listening to this, you've either seen it or don't care. I'm not a Jeremy Johns. I'm not a Chris Stuckman. You're not like tuning in to hear my brief non-spoiler thoughts and come back later from a full spoiler video. I'm not at that level, certainly. That's not really my thing. I'm not going to really review the movie. There's a lot I want to talk about with regards for him, but I'm not going to be like, bam, I thought it was great. 7 out of 10. I'm going to, especially not this one. There are movies that I can review like that. Blade Runner for 2049, I think I discussed a little bit like that. Like, oh my God, and this, the symbolism of this and the character arc of that. This movie was fascinating to me. The Rise of Skywalker was fascinating to me before I went to watch it because of the context behind it. And I'm here to report to you that it is extremely interesting to watch if you think about the real world context behind it. I mean, it's probably just straight fun, couple hours of fun if you aren't. I discussed on my Han Solo episode, I discussed the fact that Star Wars stuff almost always holds a single serve enjoyment for me, meaning I will enjoy it the first time I consume it, pretty much across the board, because I like Star Wars. There's enough Star Wars in every Star Wars thing to cross that threshold where, like, I don't know, have you ever done an activity in life that you enjoyed and after that you were like, yeah, I don't know if I'm ever going to do that again? It was fun. Sure. I didn't dislike doing that. I didn't dislike putt-putt golf or whatever, but or laser tag, I don't know. But I'm not sure I'm going to go back. You know, I went to a football game and it was cool, but yeah, whatever. That's kind of how I think about certain movie franchises or things of that sort. Because, you know, especially J.J. Abrams in this instance is a robot programmed to generate entertainment. His brain is an algorithm for like marketable, digestible entertainment. Not even he could have steered it back after not just the place where The Last Jedi left the story, but also the just garbagely toxic aftermath of it. And I'm certainly not going to justify the level of fucking anger that people showed towards each other over this fucking Disney movie, you know, over this shiny product made by billionaires and millionaires. And we're hating each other over it, you know? And I understand that people are passionate. I'm passionate. I was saying this to someone today, that I have very strong opinions on these things. The thing I don't have strong opinion on particularly is the people who disagree with me. Only unless the one exception to that I make is if those people, I think it's worth responding. If somebody says something like, you know, oh, anybody who liked Joker is an incel, I think it's worth responding to someone like that on a sort of a more personal level because, you know, it's a stupid, wrong argument, but there is also a sort of like a personal poison behind it. It's not a review of the movie. That is already the person themselves not reviewing the movie, actually just skipping over the movie entirely and just attacking people for having a different opinion about this thing than you. Generally speaking, I think that enjoying The Last Jedi is perfectly fine, and people who like it, good for them. And I do not think that Rian Johnson set out to destroy Star Wars or annoy the fanboys. I have come to believe that Rian Johnson simply was never in tune with with what people wanted with Star Wars, and I don't mean that in like a give the fanboys more what they want. No, because I'm not saying because when you imagine something like that, you're thinking that I'm thinking on a micro level, like people, what the fans want is Luke Skywalker fighting 6 people at once. No, that's not what I mean. What the fans want is like stuff like have the characters that you know continue to do things that are in line with their character. And I understand that it's okay to subvert that and it's okay to break that pattern. But when that's your guiding principle with something that's a again, a franchise that is a fan pleaser exists in order to please fans. You know, this isn't Francois Truffaut here. I don't know if Star Wars is the place where you want to start fucking deconstructing the entire thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about an eighth movie, like the second legacy movie that Disney made that, you know, and the first one, The Force Awakens, was like, the whole point of it was like, oh my God, kids want to be Rey, and it's these new characters and stuff like that. The follow-up to that, is that really the place where you're like, I'm going to deconstruct the genre now. I'm going to slay your idols. It was like you were... And again, I don't think, as I said, I don't think Rian Johnson set out to like annoy the fanboys. I just think that he, at no point was it explained to him or nobody cared to, that he didn't think that this is not the pulpit to be doing that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not saying shovel on the whipped cream and just do a bunch of orgasm shots over and over. I don't like that. Even the like the Marvel movies and the stuff like that are the most popular and the people like the most have substance to them. They are not just tentpole crowd pleasers. I think that concept is a little outdated. It exists still a little, but it's not, you don't get asses in seats just by doing a big spectacle with like tent poles. That's not really true anymore because the game has been upped. You know, people have upped their game. There's stuff out there now that is both tentpole pleasing and actually good, and has good character development, and has good, like in-universe consistency, multi-movie story arcs that make sense, good character relationships, and good villains, and shit that just works. And so when you have a movie that delivers only some of that or almost none of it, and all it does is deliver the tent poles, that's not good enough, and people are not going to flock to that. And so that's not what people were expecting from Rian Johnson. But there is still some kind of like window within which it's probably smart to operate when you're doing that. When you're not doing, Fight Club, when you're not doing Primer, again, you're making Star Wars. And as I said when I was talking about The Mandalorian, just keep it simple, man. Like, there's no need to get cerebral and complex here. And I'm saying that as a fan of cerebral and complex things. These stories did not need to be something cerebral and complex. I think there's room in the Star Wars universe for things that are cerebral and complex. I don't think Episode 8 was one of them. And so The Rise of Skywalker is one of the most transparent movies I've ever seen. And by that I mean that that almost everything in it is easily identifiable as a real world decision. And I think the best movies are entirely opaque, where it isn't clear that a certain actor was hired because X, or a certain shot was achieved in a certain way because of a limitation, or something was written because a certain actor couldn't do something, or something was cut, or I don't know, whatever. If you get a movie and it looks like everything on screen is the exact thing that the director wanted to be there, and they picked everything that they wanted, I would call that movie 100% opaque. Because the creative process behind it is opaque. I mean, the more like the non-creative process behind it is opaque. The real world limitations on creativity are hidden from you. you're seeing is something that looks 100% creative and not restricted at all. The Rise of Skywalker, almost all of the stuff there is very easily attributable to like, oh, the fans didn't like this, the fans like that. We got to do this in order for that to happen, and we got to change this because that other movie left us in this position. There's also, you got to add like, Carrie Fisher to that. I thought they danced around the fact that she's dead quite well. It was I don't know if I would have noticed if I didn't know that, that was what they were doing. Like in retrospect, most of her scenes in it are like from the exact same angle and stuff like that. But again, because of that's not their fault, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, it just adds to the fact that almost everything in this movie, it's like one of those, it's like a clock, or it's like a piece of like machinery that's transparent. Have you ever seen like a car engine model that's made out of clear plastic so you can see all the pistons and all that shit working? That's what this feels like. This feels like Penn and Teller's cups and balls trick. Go search that on YouTube and you'll see what I mean. There's a famous magic trick called Cups and Balls. It's 3 cups, 3 like red cups. They're upside down and there's balls, and you like hide them and they disappear, and you put it under the cup and over the cup, and it goes from one cup to the other. It's this whole routine, and they do it with cups that are transparent in order to like break the trick. And that's what this feels like. Everything in it was like, oh my God, some moments of it made me like burst out laughing, and not in a good way, not in a like, oh my God, that joke was funny, more like in a, oh my God, I can't believe this is a thing. And I don't know if a movie ever wants you to do that. And so, like I said, let's just bleed into spoilers here, because that is my review of it. It is a fascinating movie because I've never seen a movie that is as clearly influenced by the real world as this one. I don't think so. I sincerely do not think I've ever seen something like this. And other people are going to talk to you about plot holes. I'm probably going to nitpick it just a teeny bit. I'm going to leave that to other people. I'm already seeing people who are doing a better job at it than I will. It's not about that to me. In fact, I was so more invested in the meta, as I just explained, that certain ridiculous aspects of the plot only became ridiculous to me when I thought about them right before I started recording this and sat down to write some bullet points so that I would remember what I wanted to talk about. And I was thinking about the plot a little, and I was like, oh wait, that was ridiculous and dumb. I didn't even think about that while watching the movie, because I was, again, focused on like finding the seams, and boy did I mean, there are a lot of seams in here. And so I think the first thing I want to talk about, probably the most obvious thing, is the many instances in which they're very clearly trying to remove the previous movie or undo the previous movie, to the point of like insult. I mean, really, it's really clear. This isn't just me like in an inference. I mean, they're doing a lot of it, to the point where you could very easily put together like a 10-minute montage from like The Last Jedi and render that movie unnecessary. There's exactly 2 story beats that you need people to know in order to avoid The Last Jedi. 1, Luke died. And 2, Snoke died. That's it. And Rey and Kylo Ren have some sort of connection. And so I guess you could like create like a mini version of The Last Jedi that includes only Rey's scenes on the island with Luke, and then Rey and Kylo fighting Snoke, and Kylo killing Snoke, and then Rey and Kylo fighting together. So the scenes of Rey on the island will also have her scenes kind of Force communicating with Kylo Ren. But yeah, those are really the only 2 things that you need to know. Everything else from the previous movie is mentioned in very brief passing. They say the Holdo maneuver. We're going to get to that in a second. And they talk about, and like Rose is in it for like 2 seconds, where we're going to talk about that as well. But like, It is pretty incredible. And then there is a lot of effort and work that is put into like having to get us back to a place in which we can do some shit. And so here I actually wrote a series of things that, like they totally retconned in order to like avoid the problems of the previous movie. Like I said, one of them is Rose. Rose is reduced in this movie to a second Greg Grunberg. She's like, they're about to go on it's actually, this was one of the moments that I burst out laughing in the theater. I think it was the first one. No, the first one was when the opening crawl said, "The dead speak. Palpatine is alive." It was that, something like that. And I just like went like loudly in the theater. But then they're about to go on a big adventure and Rose is like, and so Finn is like, says to Rose like, "So Rose, are you coming?" And Rose is like, "Nah, I think I'm going to stay here." It was just like amazing. Oh my God. It was, and again, like I said, so blatant, unbelievable. Holdo, as I said, they mentioned the Holdo maneuver. Again, this was so clearly like an answer to online argument, like the movie responding to people complaining about it on the internet. Someone said like, "Why don't we do the Holdo maneuver?" And Poe's like, "Oh, come on. We all know that was just a 1 in a million thing, as though you could never hope to replicate it." But like, what an amazing hand wave, because people were like, "Well, if you could do that, why not do it all the time?" And so the response to that is, it's a 1 in a million thing. Oh my God, this podcast is going to be a lot of me laughing. Okay, another amazing retcon of The Last Jedi is Hux. They tuned the Hux dial down to like 45%. Like in the first movie, he was like a sort of clowny, and he got incredibly like angry at that speech, "The First Order," But then in the second one, they like took it to clownish levels. And here he's like a regular Imperial officer. He's not yelling. He's just a regular dude. And then he turns out to be the spy in the most amazing reveal ever. "I'm the spy," he says, and looks directly at camera. Oh my God. And then it's like, that also goes nowhere, because he's like, I don't care if the rebels win. I just want Kylo Ren to lose. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. This is internal power struggle. And then like 30 seconds later, he's dead. He gets shot by the other guy, who comes out of nowhere and is now like the new preferred son. Luke, oh my God. And so then they also retcon Luke entirely, because like Rey's like, fuck this, I'm gonna do what Luke did. I can become evil, because I'm a Palpatine. Oh, we're gonna get to that in a little bit. But she was like, "I'm afraid that I'm gonna become evil, so I'm gonna do what Luke did. I'm gonna go to that island, I'm gonna burn my ship, and I'm gonna live like a hermit." Cool, I get it. That's an interesting idea. She goes to the island, and then she like throws the lightsaber into the fire, and then Luke's Force ghost catches it, and he's like, "That's no way to treat a lightsaber." He should have just said Rian Johnson. Luke literally should have just said, "That's no way to treat a lightsaber, Rian Johnson." And then like, the whole point is like, "Oh, I was wrong." She was like, "Oh, I was going to do what you did." And he was like, "I was wrong. I was wrong, Rey." Looks to camera. "In the previous movie, I was wrong. Do you hear me? Do you hear me yet, audience?" Okay. Another thing. I'll probably be able to think of more retcons like that, but then I have like a whole bunch of just other things that I wanted to say. Like, for instance, Palpatine, okay? From the opening crawl, it says something like, the dead speak, mysterious message from Emperor Palpatine. And then in the movie, everybody calls him Palpatine Poe, Palpatine this, Palpatine that. Nobody called him Palpatine in it. He was the Emperor. And I understand that later in the prequels, we learned that he was Senator Palpatine, and I don't think that his identity is a secret. His identity is not a secret. Because we even know that, everyone even knows that, like, Emperor Palpatine became disfigured after his quote-unquote assassination attempt. The Jedi tried to assassinate me and left me with these scars. That thing? So it's people know, but nobody called him fucking Palpatine. 40 years on, and it's like a war and stuff. Who the fuck even would, I don't know if they would know it offhand. Or maybe he said it in his message. I don't know. It just sounded odd. It sounded like because we all say Palpatine, then they should say Palpatine too instead of the Emperor. The only two people who should have said Palpatine in it are Kylo Ren and Palpatine. So, the Emperor should have said to Rey, you're a Palpatine, But, there's no reason that Poe, speaking at, a resistance gathering, should use the name Palpatine and not just the Emperor. I don't know, it just felt awkward to me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Oh, another interesting retcon. This wasn't exactly a Last Jedi retcon, but they were like, oh, we got to bring back the Knights of Ren, right? Because we teased them in the whole Force vision in The Force Awakens and whatever. And so they're just like these henchmen or whatever. And then he just unceremoniously kills all of them later. They don't say anything. They don't really do anything. They're just standing around on a rock. Was it Tatooine? Were they in Tatooine? I can't even remember. No, it was not Tatooine or Jakku. It was the third desert planet with the festival and the car chase that looked like Mad Max because it was exploding clouds of colored powder. But yeah, there was the Knights of Ren were just standing in a circle on top of a big rock, and a helicopter was flying around them taking a picture of them. Let me see. Okay, and so as I said, as I was thinking about this and writing things down here, I started writing things that were just a little awkward and weird, and I didn't get okay. So the fleet, right? So first of all, a lot of people are going to talk about where did this fleet come from. I don't even mind. Fuck it. I don't even care where the fleet came from. Let's say that the Emperor used his giant Sith power, whatever, and there were stands full of, or were those Sith? Who were the people in the stands? We never saw a close-up of them to see what they looked like. That was weird. I kept waiting for a close-up to show, 2 or 3 of them, and then we could assume that they all looked like that. Maybe they looked like the people who were tending him, who had bandages around their face or whatever, but nope, they never cut to them. We don't know what they looked like. There was some crowd chanting in the background. So yeah, I'm even willing to accept that, the Emperor created this fleet using Sith magic over decades. Fine, whatever. But why was it so crucial? The rebellion was already destroyed, right? I was not under the impression that the First Order was crippled beyond their ability to retain power at the end of The Last Jedi. That's not what that movie implied at all. It implied that, they were now kind of crushed. And yeah, Snoke was dead. His ship was destroyed or whatever, but they still were powerful, and now they were back on top. Why is this fleet of Star Destroyers now this thing that they gotta have, and that without which they're dead? I wasn't exactly following. I mean, I get that they're way stronger and they got the Death Star weapon on each of them, which was just a ridiculous, oh, how are we going to one up the concept of a Death Star? Now every Star Destroyer has a Death Star weapon on it. Yeah, anyway, but like I said, the ridiculous aspects of the plot, I haven't even begun to peel that layer of the onion yet. This is just observations that I got out of nowhere. Poe's love interest, Carrie Russell. Again, a lot of the plot points here and a lot of the ideas here would have been kind of all right if this were a 3-movie thing. If J.J. Abrams had made all 3 of these, then yeah, maybe some of you listening to this would have hated all 3. But it would have been an idea. It would have been a vision, and it would have been a storyline. And there were a lot of things here where it was oh, if this were introduced in the last movie and played throughout to this one, yeah, sure, I guess. Poe's love interest. who was like, I don't know, like came out of nowhere, disappeared, came back at the end for a gag or two, which was also kind of what they did with Lando. A somewhat pointless, like bringing him back for no real reason. I guess at the end, he was the one who talked everybody into coming to help, but he played no real part in the story. Another thing that played no real part in the story was the Chewie fake out death. And we also didn't understand at the end, like why he didn't die. They just said like, I guess he was on a different transport. There were no other transports. We saw him being put on the transport and the transport taking off. Like, I don't think you can gaslight us into being like, nah, you're wrong. There was another transport. You weren't looking right. You only saw, you want to be sure? You got to go buy another ticket to our movie, sucker. I'm serious. And also it didn't do anything. They were just like sad because Chewie died and Rey was like, fuck, I can kill people. And then like fucking 10 minutes later, oh shit, Chewie's alive. Let's go rescue him. Okay. Really? Couldn't it have just been Chewie was captured and she had done something else? Like, you know how in Captain America Civil War, in the beginning of Civil War, where Scarlet Witch accidentally kills a bunch of people trying to save Captain America and other people. Just do something like that. Do something like Kylo Ren tries to throw a big rock at people and Rey tries to deflect it somehow and then ends up doing something worse. I don't know. She deflects it away from those people into like an orphanage or something like that. I'm just saying there's ways to do that don't involve a bizarre like, oh, is Chewie dead? No, I guess not. And we find out that Chewie's alive before they do. Like it's even less of a long fake out for the audience than it is for the characters. Because that's another thing. Like if you're going to kill a character, like fake kill a character, reveal it to us at the same time you reveal it to the characters. Don't tell us they're alive first. It just felt like a weird attempt to introduce like a shocking moment without actually having to commit to doing something shocking. Which leads me into my next point. My God, my points actually kind of flow into each other well, and I didn't even try to do that. C-3PO memory wipe. Okay, it's this big dramatic thing. Oh, my friends, I'm never going to see you again. Oh, is this the end for C-3PO? R2. And then, like, again, 5 minutes later, like, oh, no, R2 has a backup. He doesn't remember this week, but he's fine. Like, really? Then why? And they were, like, really adamant. Like, oh, no. Babu Frick, which is the best part of this movie, was like, no, I can't. No. Memory delete. And they were like, can we back it up with R2-D2? No, definitely not. We definitely can't do it with R2-D2. There's no way R2-D2 has a backup of my memory. He's very shoddy. He's sloppy at doing this. They say something like that. Oh, he's notoriously unreliable. Definitely don't even try. Just forget about R2-D2. This is a final memory wipe. Oh, wait, R2-D2 has a backup. It doesn't matter. Like, what? Again, it felt like they wanted to have a lot of like big emotional beats without having to like do anything that big emotional beats require you to do, like kill a character or erase a character's memories for real. Let's see. So again, Kylo Ren. So Kylo Ren has redemption at the end. And as we know in Hollywood these days, bad character redemption, that means you're going to die. Which is sad sometimes. Sometimes I don't like that. Like in Guardians 2, when they killed what's his name? Blue fin guy. Mary Poppins. When they killed Mary Poppins, that was because he was bad. He was a bad guy, but then he had redemption, so he had to die. Same thing here. Ben Solo, redemption, death. Okay. But like at the beginning of the movie, I mean, even at the end of the previous movie, he was already back to being like full evil. It's like it happened all three movies. It was like, oh, is Kylo Ren going to turn good? Nope. He killed Han Solo. Okay, he's evil now. Now he's definitely evil. Last Jedi. Okay, he's talking to Rey. Oh, whatever. He kills Snoke, right? Oh my God, they're fighting together. Oh, he wants to end it all. He wants him to become allies and leave it all behind and just join forces. Oh wait, no, he's evil. He wants to kill Luke Skywalker and he's screaming for them to shoot everybody, whatever. And now in the beginning of this movie, again, he's mega evil, and then once again he has like a rather abrupt decision to like, oh wait, you know what? I guess I'm good. I never thought I'd say this, but it's like the Anakin Skywalker arc is actually a more linear progression towards evil than Kylo Ren's is towards good. It's bizarrely paced in the prequels, but he does start off as being very good and then slowly does things that are worse. And then it very abruptly becomes evil. But it's still, the graph still has basically, forwards movement and upwards movement. The Kylo Ren graph is all over the place because they literally did not know as they were making this trilogy whether he was going to end up having redemption or not. I sincerely believe that this was a thing that they were like, I'll figure it out. Which is essentially the main problem of this entire thing. This movie, this trilogy, they just winged it. Why? Why did they wing it? I don't understand. The one thing I understand is that you say, okay, we're introducing a bunch of new stuff. We don't want to commit to it for 3 movies. We want to kind of almost focus test it in the real world to see what's popular, what do people like, what characters do people like more or less. I get it. But you can work some wiggle room into that. You can say in the second movie, an unimportant character has to achieve this. And in the third movie, that same character, because they did this, that happens. Okay? Now you can set out and say, it's going to be this character. It's going to be character X, right? And let's say at some point you're going to have to change that. Don't redo everything. Like, try to cleverly plug in the changes that you make into the framework you already set. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a fucking mess like this again. No need. The things that I liked. We're going to go back to maybe some more things later, but things that I liked. The special effects. The camera work. J.J. Abrams knows how to make a movie. I mean, he just does. There's shots that are great. Big outside shots that are cool. Like shots, long cuts of corridor battles and the jungle rebel base stuff. I loved Babu Freak, as I said, or Frick. I loved Dio. I thought Dio was a really cool little robot. I liked how he spoke. I thought both Babu Frick and Dio had interesting vocal concepts behind him. They didn't just do another BB-8 and another R2-D2, a robot that beeps and bloops and does that stuff. He speaks, but in a very sort of simple, weird way. Babu Frick balances speaking an alien language with like heavily accented bad English, which I thought was just terrific. And is just like a good design, a funny little character. I like that entire scene. And I thought C-3PO's humor in this was a highlight for the movie. I thought this movie was actually, the humor in it worked way better than in The Last Jedi. I do think J.J. Abrams has a better sense of that kind of humor, how to incorporate humor into this kind of content, and it that definitely shows. And it had several moments that I thought were pretty funny. I cringed really hard and laughed like embarrassedly at Chewie getting a medal, because that's a meme. So they gave Chewie a medal because people have been joking about how he didn't get a medal in the original Star Wars. I mean, come on. And he was like so happy that he had a medal. It was like, fuck, he was just like on the ground, like screaming at the sky because Leia was dead like fucking 5 minutes earlier. And now he's like, I got a medal. Fuck her. I just remembered she didn't give me a medal after that last thing. I'm not sad she's dead anymore. Rey and Kylo's weird kiss. Why did they kiss? Someone I was watching review this movie said that was a YA moment, and that's so fucking true. Like, what? I mean, look, in general, I was thinking that the interpersonal relationships in these movies are kind of strange. Everybody's like a sort of weird friend with weird emotional and maybe sexual tension, but then maybe they're relatives, so you're not sure if you're misinterpreting it. And that continues into this. But I guess now that I think of it, I guess what they were teasing, because Finn was like, oh, I got to talk to Rey about a thing. And they kept teasing it like, oh, maybe he's in love with her. That's what he wants. But I think what he was going to talk to her about was him being force sensitive, which is another thing they bring out of fucking nowhere all of a sudden, that he's force sensitive. There was a lot of shit brought out of nowhere. And that's what I was saying before, that I was going to compare this to The Mandalorian. Moff Gus Fring in The Mandalorian, quote unquote, comes out of nowhere. He's the big bad, in the same way that the Emperor here is like, oh no, Snoke, I made that fucker. Look over there. I have 8 Snokes in a jar. But Moff Gideon, that's Gus Fring's name. That's Giancarlo Esposito's name in The Mandalorian. He's just Werner Herzog's boss. Werner Herzog was clearly never like the head of the organization. He was not the guy leading the remnants of the Empire. The guy leading the remnants of the Empire would not be sitting around in a shithole in Tatooine with like 4 stormtroopers around him being like, bring me the child. Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. I fucking love Werner Herzog. I could listen to Werner Herzog say Star Wars shit all day long. Anyway, bringing Giancarlo Esposito out in the second to last episode, like, there's your bad guy, is definitely not jarring, especially since there's a big chance that he's going to be the main antagonist in the next season. And the thing with TV also is, often you need a season or a show to end in order to, like, in retrospect, appreciate the pacing. A movie doesn't really have that, because at the end of the movie, you understand everything, like everything that was going to pay off, paid off, and then that was it. Or, you know, if it's a trilogy, then maybe things play out into the next movie. But there was so much stuff that was brought out of nowhere in this movie. Stuff like new force powers, a bunch of new force powers. Leia being a Jedi Master who was trained by Luke when they were young. Again, the Emperor, just generally the Emperor. Poe's whole history and love interest. The stormtrooper mutineers who lived on the other moon of Endor where the Death Star crashed. Who brought those like horses to ride across the Death Star, which was like, why? And they had a really annoying contrivance. I mean, I sometimes I find contrivances like this clever, and I guess this was clever, but I would only call it clever if there were like literally a reason for them to be riding horses, because they weren't natives. If there were aliens who were natives and all they knew was how to ride horses, fine. But they defected from the First Order. They've been living on that planet for like, I don't know, a year. Then so the fact that they ride horses is like irrelevant to their character, except that the one time we saw them before this, they were on those horses. And so they hand wave it like, sir, they're running across the outside of the ship. Disable their their speeders. But they're not on speeders. Because, you know, I guess if you ride a horse, they can't disable the thing that you're riding on. Okay, then fucking run. Like everybody else was running there. Like most of the people there weren't riding on horses. Like it felt like why the horses? It would have been way better if she had said like, yes, we're an entire company of stormtroopers and we defected and stuff. And then like at the last minute, like the reveal is they run out. They're all wearing like repurposed stormtrooper armor that looks like rebel-y, like partisan, like not partisan politics, like partisans, you know, like in World War II. Maybe painted in some weird way with like war paints or something like that. Or camoed, I don't know. That would have looked cool. That would have been interesting. And then it would also show the large-scale discontent that existed against the First Order, the Empire, whatever, for doing the things that they were going to do. They also hand-waved away how they were going to crew all of those Star Destroyers, because that's the first thing I thought was like, where's all the people for this going to come from? But then I guess they're doing like planet-wide sweeps, just like stealing everybody's kids. Like, shit, we need warm bodies behind the wheels of these Star Destroyers. Does that mean they're like in a fast track? People are going to have like 13-year-olds like, my dearest Martha, today I commanded my first raid. Anyway, but like I said, that's all like ridiculous plot stuff and nitpicking. I thought Rey's lightsaber at the end was really cool with the twist, action that turns it on. It was yellow. It was kind of cool looking, whatever. She adopted the name Skywalker. Fine, I guess. I'm not sure. The music was good because it's John Williams. And as always, there's some great production design. There's some good aliens. Like I said, Babu Frick was awesome. It had a lot of locations. I like that it had a bunch of locations. It didn't need a desert planet. They could have done something else instead of a golden sand dunes planet, for sure. But it had enough stuff. And like I said, single serve. I certainly wasn't bored, but again, I wasn't bored because I had a purpose. My viewing had a purpose, which was I want to see all the ways in which they had to change course in order to like figure out what to do after what happened with the last movie. And if you watch it like that, I guarantee you'll be very entertained. And even if you don't watch it like that, there's a pretty good chance you'll be entertained. Lots of people are going to like this more than The Last Jedi, especially people who hated The Last Jedi for culture war reasons. I think are going to enjoy this more. It is pandery in a fun way, I guess. Again, it depends on what you want. If you're a kid, I think you might enjoy this a lot. I saw people complaining about Rey being extra Mary Sue-ish in this, and they're not wrong. That never really bothered me. Again, that doesn't bother me in a good movie. If the movie isn't good, then you start to nitpick stuff like that, and you start to go like, okay, then why? Why is there no conflict? Why is she never bested? You know, stuff like that. I just don't find... I don't find like socio-political reasons behind that. I don't think that anybody set off to make Rey overpowered and Mary Sue-ish because of feminism. I think it's more because I would blame like modern storytelling conventions more in the idea that taking the time to develop your character and having them face like legitimate adversity and just being bad at things is not easy. Like if you take Harry Potter, for instance, like Harry Potter has a lot of that because he's the protagonist, like introduction character into like the wizarding world, right? He doesn't know, so he's bad at magic and he's bad at broom riding or whatever. But they balance that out by making him the chosen one, right? So ultimately, like nothing can be done to him, and he can never be bested and shit. And that's not feminism, obviously. I think it has more to do with the way protagonists are viewed by the machines that make the media that we consume now. In the same way I said before, when a bad guy has redemption, he has to die. I don't think that our media market environment has yet gotten prepared for the idea of reckoning with what a bad character who redeemed itself would be like after that, like as a character. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of person would Kylo Ren be if he didn't die and lived on into another movie as a good guy? Like, would any of his moral protestations be not hypocritical? And can he ever atone for the things that he did? How can these people forgive him? And how can they, why isn't he in prison? You know, all kinds of stuff like that. That's morally complex. And again, maybe Star Wars is not exactly the place to deal with moral complexities. You can do a little, right? I mean, I once again, I said the argument where people say it's for kids. It's for kids. Stop. Don't nitpick it. Who cares? It's just for kids. I was like, what? Do kids do not deserve good storytelling? It's like, why is it's for kids? Why is that turned into an excuse to do stuff that's not good or not as good as it could be? Fuck it. Kids don't care about character development. Kids don't. Like, what? You think kids don't notice? Do you think that if you make a movie that's better, it won't stick with kids? Like, why do kids like adult shit? Kids like adult shit because adult shit is well made. You know, it has like stuff that they're, you know, that's like above their station, and you always want to experience naughty things and stuff. But like, the idea is they're attracted to things that are good. You know, even if as kids they're not entirely sure of the why. You know, you don't yet possess like the ability to understand mechanically like why something is good, or the camera work is good, or the story's written well, the dialogue is good, or the characters have compelling storylines. But bringing kids up on good content like that can only be good. And so saying, whatever, it's for kids, I don't like that. Make good shit for kids too. And if you do that, kids and adults will probably both enjoy it the same. And I think on that note, I'm going to end. I don't really have much more to say. As I said, did I like it? God, man, no. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't like it. Meaning, like, I'm not going to buy it, I don't think. I'll watch it again, like, when it's available to watch, like, on a streaming thing, just to, like, see some of the stuff that was in it again. But, like, no. And a lot of it isn't its fault. It's just this weird, lumbering, it's like Brett Favre's last season playing football. You know, at the end, people will look back at his career as storied and legendary, but he just like limped to the finish line. And there is going to be more Star Wars after this, obviously. Hopefully they're going to fire Kathleen Kennedy. Hopefully they'll hire Kevin Feige. Hopefully they'll fucking sit down and plan their stories before they make them now. And hopefully after a few years of break, they will figure out something cool to do, like maybe the Old Republic. Maybe they're just going to fucking reboot the whole thing. Maybe they'll do something new that nobody has ever done before. For instance, do a new sequel trilogy to the original movies that replaces these, as in like a different sequel trilogy. You know, like a Legends kind of thing. Hey, you got that storyline as a sequel to the originals, and here you got a totally different one with totally different characters. The continuity proceeds down a different line. That's never really been done before. It's been done before to death in stuff like anime, comic books, whatever. I think they wanted to do that with like Alien. They kind of did it with Terminator Dark Fate now. Why not Star Wars? Whatever it is, learn the right lessons from your mistakes. That is the most important thing of all. And on those closing words, this has been episode 25 of the Neoncast. Thank you for listening. This is soon going to be on a podcast service. I know I've said that a couple times before, but it will happen in 2020. YouTube.com/C/Neontaster is where you've probably listened to this and where you can see a bunch of other stuff like the streams that I upload to there from twitch.tv/Neontaster. Come join me for streams. I'm streaming Breath of the Wild. I'm going to start peppering in some Witcher 3 after the new year, some God of War, and other things. Patreon.com/Neontaster. If you want to throw me a couple of bucks a month for what I do and you don't have Twitch or whatever. And as always, I'm on Twitter, obviously, twitter.com/Neontaster. This has been the Neoncast, so thanks for listening if you have been listening. And if not, then why am I talking to you?